Hi guys, welcome back to Irish Footy Vlogs. Welcome back to another video of ours. And this one is about St. Patrick's Athletic today. And as it says in the thumbnail, can St. Patrick's Athletic kick on in 2024? And what does kicking on actually mean for St. Patrick's Athletic in reality? Obviously, over the last few seasons, they've won 2 FAI Cups since 2021. Finished third in the league, finished fourth in the league, qualified for Europe 3 seasons in a row now. On the face of it, that's pretty good. Can they kick on though and get to the next level, which you feel is really putting in a serious challenge for the title? Last season, some people might have felt that they put in a bit of a challenge for the title. The points total at the top was fairly low, but in reality, I think the aim for Pats really was qualify for Europe next season if they can. And if they won a cup, it would have been fantastic. I know they ended up winning the FAI Cup, fantastic season. So I think if you look at it since 2021, last couple of years, to win 2 FAI Cups in 3 years and to qualify for Europe 3 seasons in a row, I think it's only natural you probably need to be looking at, okay, you know, can we kick on now and really give a serious title challenge? 2021, after winning the FAI Cup, you know, I won't say turmoil. It was a very difficult situation because as a St. Patrick's Athletic fan myself, you know, it was difficult to really soak in, appreciate that you won the cup because of all this was coming out, and I knew it was going to be coming out in a few days. And in terms of the club kicking on after that, it made it very difficult, really difficult. The club did act quickly in appointing Tim Clancy, but even so, there was, you know, players that hadn't signed contracts that were expected to sign with Stephen O'Donnell as manager. There were 1 or 2 players coming to the club that were expected to sign with Stephen O'Donnell as manager. So the whole transfer structure, if you like, and players coming and going had been left up in the air and left a mess, to be perfectly honest. And it made it difficult going into the following season. The following season, though, I think the club did okay, to be fair, qualified for Europe again under Tim Clancy, who came in under a very difficult situation, to be fair. And I think the club done well again. But felt like the team lacked the balance. Like, you know, they won the cup in 2021. The thought was, with a couple of more additions, they could challenge for the title. But as mentioned before, they were left in a very difficult situation. I think Pat's done well to qualify for Europe that year because the squad lacked the balance that was required after the big mess, basically. That's all I can say, really. It was a huge mess. Obviously, the following season then, which was last season, we're going into the new season now, 2023, and they started the season, the club, obviously Tim Clancy was there, and I think a couple of key things happened there as well. I think not being able to get, say, Barry Cotter and Adam O'Reilly signed up were major disappointments, let's say, and they became pivotal players for Pats, and unfortunately we couldn't get them signed. So that set the club back a little bit, I think, as well. And eventually Tim left the club. He performed in Europe well the year before as well, and his assistant John Daly come in to take over as temporary manager after a couple of games. I think the first game was in Cork with him as temporary manager, and Pats won 3-2 at Turner's Cross, if I remember rightly. And I think it was a couple of games later they gave him the permanent job. And it's always difficult because when you've got a manager coming in that was assistant, you're never sure. Let's be real. You're never sure how things are going to go, and etc. And a couple of key things. Dean Linus came in, was the goalkeeper. There was a bit of chopping and changing in goal prior to that. Linus that came in, he was outstanding last year. I think it's a little unfortunate that they weren't able to keep on to him in 2024. But he, you know, when you have a young family and you're commuting from Scotland, I don't think that was ever realistic. I think they've done well actually to keep him till the end of the season. There was talk that he was going to be going back, to be honest, in the summer window. So yeah, that's out of your hands, to be fair. But the club again were involved in, I would say, really a European race, and at times it felt like they were kind of pushing near the top, and then other times it felt like the club's just a little bit behind, are close and are gaining on them. So you had this weird dynamic with Pats last season where could they make a surprise challenge for the title? or could they even fall out of the European places? So you had that weird dynamic going on. Personally, I felt with the squad that they had overall, I don't think they were good enough to challenge for the title, to be perfectly honest. I don't think the players were there. Some great players there, but again, the balance not there to win the title, I felt, even though Shamrock Rovers weren't at their peak best, let's say, last season, which always leads you into the question of could someone else challenge them. I think Derry disappointed that way, if I'm honest with you, but that's another story. Pats then, speaking of Derry, it leads on well, met Derry in the Cup, and I just had this sense, I can't remember if I tweeted whoever wins that tie will get to the final, or whoever wins that tie, I felt we're going to win the Cup. I can't remember which one, but it just felt like it had that importance about it. And Derry had a bad week that week, I think, as well, didn't they? They were beaten in Europe, I believe, as far as I remember, and that's right, they lost in Europe on penalties, and they went out in Europe on penalties, and then went out in the Cup on penalties, and it felt like that was a massive one. If Derry had won that in penalties, maybe they could have been the FAI Cup winners in 2024, to be honest. But as anything, you need luck to win a cup competition, and there's always a decent chance you're going to encounter a penalty shootout. But in terms of the cup itself, very strange that Pats won the cup without playing a game at Richmond Park. I think Dundalk done that a number of years ago. I can't remember any other situation like that, but that's always difficult. Okay, some of the games you think they should be winning, like Longford, let's say, and who else was it? Finn Harps, and Cork City as well, I'd have to say, although going down to Turner's Cross for a semi-final, it's not easy. But you felt Pats should come through those, and they had this habit last season under John Daly, I think, generally, of grinding out results, and there were some games they didn't play particularly well in, and they seemed to have this knack of not creating too many chances in certain games, but scoring goals. So they could create 2 or 3 chances a game and score 1 or 2, and that would be enough. Defensively, they improved. Joe Redmond came back, obviously, after being injured, etc., and he really marshalled that defence very, very well. He was outstanding last season. Probably unlucky not to be a team in the season, but the time out in the sidelines probably was the reason for that, to be fair. And, they had this habit of grinding out results, maybe something that Bohemians couldn't do. Shelbourne made a late flurry in the end and finished 4th. And Dundalk couldn't do, I think. I think Pats had a habit of doing that. Sometimes you felt they were dropping a bit too deep against teams that you felt they were better than, if I'm honest. But more often than not, they were getting the result. And in the end, to finish 3rd and qualify for Europe was a good season. So now you're looking at 2024, and you're saying to yourself, can they challenge? Is this the time now? And one of the things I think they would have needed to have done in the other transfer windows, let's say, as opposed to this season, was try and strike early. And you think if you've won 2 cups in 3 years and qualified for Europe 3 years in a row, that you should have a little advantage over some of the other clubs. And I think that happened. That's happened over the likes of, say, Bohemians, for example. I think that has happened. People might look at Pats and say, okay, we might be able to get success there. Never mind playing in European competition or whatever, but we might be able to get success there. But also, I think what they've done is, in this particular window, is they brought in more players that know the league and are used to the league. And generally, I think that's crucial. Shamrock Rovers have generally brought in players that have either played in the league or are in the league. Derry have done the same. So the better teams are doing that. Even if you go back to Dundalk and they're under Kenny, etc., most of their better players came from within the league. And I just feel that's important. I just think these days, at times, when you bring in foreign imports, particularly from outside of Britain, let's say, if you look at the clubs in the last couple of years, for some reason, I would say 90% of them have not done well enough. So I'm not sure what the reason is for that, or whatever. Agents do great jobs, whatever it is. But generally, the foreign imports haven't really done that well. There are examples, or great examples, obviously, and the Pats have had one with Vidaslav Jaros, for example, on loan, and they'd be hoping the same from the new goalkeeper, Marcelo, who's come in on loan for Liverpool as well. But in general, Conor Keeley's come in from Drogheda United, knows the league, etc., was outstanding for Drogheda United last season. Brandon Kavanagh, who I think was underutilised by Derry, very good footballer. Even if you want to go to Cian Levy, who was signed in the summer window, really with this season in mind as well, was at Shelbourne, obviously. Irish young lad, and was at Pats before, obviously before he went to England. So, you know, he was in the structure of the league. Rory Keating, you know, it goes without saying, he was outstanding, has been outstanding the last 2 years. He's got a bit of everything as a forward, to be fair. And I think we'll give Pats, I think their strikers the last few years have lacked that heading ability as well. That's something he brings to the fore as well. Yeah, so most of the signings they've brought in, Aaron Bulger, another one from Cork, most of the signings they've brought in have been within the league. And I think you have to look to that. Now, it can be harder to get players within the league, particularly nowadays when most players are in contracts. So you don't see so many players moving within the league, and it can be difficult to break that foreign mark. And I don't think Pats have done that successfully enough, if I'm honest, in the last couple of years with certain players that have come in. There's been an awful lot of players. One example is Creda, for example, who came in, Estonian international, was there for a couple of months and then left the club. Lewis was in last season, was gone by the summer. And that seemed to be kind of like a fairly... that was a feature thing that was happening with a lot of clubs. But we're talking about St Patrick's Athletic here. Looking at the squad, I'm not going to make any predictions now because, you know what I mean, we're previewing the league and all that kind of stuff as well. But looking at the squad now, I would say they've lost Sam Curtis, of course, and Adam Murphy in that, for example. I would have liked Norman to stay as well, but clearly he wanted to go back home to Canada as well. He's gone to Vancouver, so you want to keep the bulk of the squad. Keeping Joe Redmond for another season is a huge plus as well. But I think in the attacking areas, Pats look like they're strong enough, and I think defensively, I think they look like they're strong enough as well. Be interested to see how the keeper gets on. That's a big thing too. And we won't know until the season kicks off. What are they lacking, do I think, in terms of Rovers and Derry? I think midfield depth. I think Rovers and Derry have an awful lot of quality to choose from in midfield. And when you're going for a league title, I think in a marathon, I think the ability to be able to, you know, rest midfield players and rotate a little bit throughout the season could be huge. I just look at Pats at the moment, and whereas Jamie Lennon and Chris Forrester are fine, you know, you need a couple more, I think, in there as well of good enough quality. If we're talking about winning a league title over Rovers or say a Derry, I think they've got 6 or 7 really strong midfielders. Pats have maybe 2 or 3 in the actual central midfield positions, you know what I mean, as opposed to a number 10 or something like that. Now that's something that can still change, but looking at it now, it's very difficult to bring in a player now that's going to be, at this point of the pre-season, if you like, that's going to make a massive difference. But at the same time, they've made an awful lot of good signs and they're going the right direction, and I don't see them losing as many players even next year, sort of, you know. So you're kind of going, if they can, you know, the plan is to kind of, let's see if we can get a challenge in this season and maybe then identify what we need for next season, and then we're in an even better position going into next season. So that's fine as well, I think, providing that's the plan. There's been false starts. Pats fans will tell you, and especially older fans, that there's been an awful lot of false dawns at the club before as well, regards, say, maybe be entering a title race, etc., etc. I would expect them to finish third, without question, without making a prediction. I'm saying third at the least, which would mean a 4th year in Europe. So it would. It would mean a 4th year in Europe, which would be fantastic. And then you're looking maybe to kick on again next season and make 1 or 2 key signings and less players leaving the club again. They're always going to lose Sam Curtis. It's a pity they couldn't keep Murphy, I think. But I do think they're a little light at the moment in the midfield sectors, I do have to say, in terms of numbers. And quality in numbers is what you're looking for, though, of course, is what I'm saying. But the question is, do I think they can kick on next season? I do. Do I think they'll kick on enough to win the league? Probably not. Probably not. I think Rovers are still very strong. Have made some key signings. Derry have added Hooban, and he'll be seen as the vital cog in their jigsaw. They've kept their squad together. But, you know, if it's over the course of a couple of seasons where they're making progress, and I think compared to the last number of summer windows, there's definitely a veer in the right direction for St Patrick's Athletic. So I'm very interested to see how they get on this season. There's going to be massive support for St Patrick's Athletic next season. The club is definitely on the up. They have a fantastic youth system development at the club. We all know that. They've brought in some excellent players into the first team, and a lot of them have moved on to to England, etc., and other countries across Europe. And there will be players coming through as well, but because there's a lot of good players, young players in that youth academy too at the moment. Whether any of them will break through into the first team next season, maybe not quite. There might be a year away, possibly. There's definitely going to be a few working with the first team squad, so that'll be interesting to see. There's a couple of players, maybe Michael Newton, Bartley, maybe Dodd, McHale, for example, just to throw out a few names. But very interested to see what people think in the comments, whether you're a St. Patrick's Athletic fan or not. Essentially, I'm very interested to see how St. Patrick's do get on next season, and if it is a case that they can, even get closer points-wise to maybe making it look like they're more on the way to challenge for a title than maybe just hanging on to Europe. That's going to be interesting, and then the opportunity then to kick on again the following season, perhaps. But let me know what you think in the comments if you're a St. Patrick's Athletic fan or otherwise. Do you believe they're kicking on? Do you think they can surprise maybe and win the title next season? If so, why? If not, why? Let me know and we'll see you again. Good luck. Subscribe as well, by the way. Thank you very much.